Alright fam, so I just filmed the end of the year book tag, so it only seemed fitting to do the end of the decade book tag that Cats and Cameron just tagged me in today. Basically, I am splitting things into 3 sections and then answering 5 questions about those sections, and then after I've answered all of those questions, there are 2 more questions that I have to answer, and that's the tag. Sorry, my watch is beeping. It does that when it's a new hour. I don't know why I still have that setting on, but you know, it's on and that's what you just heard. The first section is 2010 to 2013. And the first question is, how much did you read? Okay, so I did some research. The Hunger Games movie came out in 2012. So I must have read The Hunger Games in 2012 because I read The Hunger Games before the movie came out. Or at least I started The Hunger Games after the movie came out. I read those my sophomore year of high school. Yeah. Okay. When did I start Harry Potter? I think I also read Harry Potter. Like, I started Harry Potter my freshman year of high school. And I must have, like, taken a break between the Harry Potter books to read The Hunger Games, because I remember also my sophomore year of high school doing a like book report type thing on, I think it was Order of the Phoenix. So I read The Hunger Games. I read 3 things in that time span. So anyway, what we've learned is I read Harry Potter, I took a break from Harry Potter to read The Hunger Games, and then I read Les Miserables. At school, I also distinctly remember reading Hamlet my sophomore year of high school. I've read a lot in my sophomore year of high school. So yeah, and I also spark noted The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. The second question, there are 5 questions. I got too carried away with that first question. The second question is, what genre did you read the most? Since there are more Harry Potter books than there are Hunger Games books, I would say that I read fantasy the most. Number 3 was, what were your favorite books and authors? So like I said, I read the Harry Potter series and the Hunger Games series. I consider those my favorite series. And I considered J.K. Rowling to be my favorite author, I guess. I don't know. I dug Hamlet when I read it. I dig Hamlet even more now that I've worked on a production of it. But yeah, so those were my favorites. Number 4 is there a book you wish you'd gotten to during this time period? I don't know. I wish I maybe would have read the Heroes of Olympus series as it came out, because that would have been pretty damn cool, wouldn't it have? But anyway, that leads us to the next question, which is, do you have any regrets for this reading period? And boy, do I have a lot of them. Mainly being that I only read 2 memorable things. Well, okay, I started Les Mis, and like I said, I also read Hamlet, but like, Hamlet was for school, and Les Mis doesn't count because I didn't finish it in 2013, so I only read 2 things, y'all. Like, yeah, sure, it comes out to be 9 books in total, but like, wow, 9 whole books in 3 years. Okay, next time period is 2014 to 2016. Y'all, okay, so let's see. Les Mis happened 2013 and 2014, so Les Mis happened. And then Song of Achilles happened in 2015. And then the Iliad happened after that. Y'all, I read the Song of Achilles in 2014. Yeah, I read it right after I graduated high school and moved down to college. So I read it in 2014, which means I read the Iliad in 2015. And then, in 2016, I read the Percy Jackson series, the Heroes of Olympus series. I think I read the first book in the Trials of Apollo series. I distinctly remember reading that in December. So yeah, that's a significant improvement, y'all. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. As 6 things! If you count the Heroes of Olympus series, Percy Jackson series, and Trials of Apollo series as separate things. So, Les Mis, Song of Achilles, The Iliad, Percy Jackson and the Olympians, Heroes of Olympus, and Trials of Apollo. Wow! 6 whole things! Which comes out to be, let's see, 14 whole things. So we didn't quite double what I did in the last section, but we almost did. The next question, before I get carried away again, what genre did you read the most of? Well, considering literally everything but Les Mis is based on Greek mythology, I would say Greek mythology shit. Loved me some Greek mythology during this time period. Still love it. But that's literally all I read besides Les Mis. So there's that. The next one was, what was your favorite books and authors? So my favorite author was definitely Madeline Miller. She had only written 1 book at this time, but she was still my favorite author. Also, obviously, Rick Riordan, but, like, I didn't consider him my favorite author. Like, Madeline Miller was still above him because I just loved the Song of Achilles that much. And she hadn't come out with Circe yet to disappoint me. So, I ruined Circe for myself. I shouldn't blame her. It's fine. But, yeah, so Madeline Miller was definitely my favorite author. My favorite book was definitely The Song of Achilles. It still is my favorite standalone. But I also, like I said, I loved everything Percy Jackson that I read. And I also loved Les Mis. I mean, I'm still Les Mis trash, y'all. Like, I listened to the soundtrack the other day in the car. It brought back some good memories. I was just like, man, I love this show. So anyway, those were my favorite books. And next one, is there a book you wish you'd read during this time period? No, can't think of anything that I missed. Yeah, I don't think I missed anything. I read what I wanted to read. And yeah, the next one is, do you have any regrets? And I don't think I have any regrets. I think the only regret I have is taking so fucking long to read the Iliad. I wish I had not taken a year to read the Iliad. But I did. And it is what it is. So yeah, that's really my only regret. And finally, we have 2017 through 2019. The sheer amount of books that I read last year and this year, I can't tell you how many series that I read. It's obviously more than whatever the last number was. So much more, in fact, that I can't count it. So yeah, I let's see, I read 30-something books last year, and I've read 70-something books this year, so I've read over 100 books in this time period, at least. I'm trying to remember what I read in 2017. I think I read The Raven Cycle in 2017, actually. Yeah, I think after I finished The Hidden Oracle, I went to my roommate at the time and was like, hey, I know you have that Raven Boys book that I see on Tumblr a lot. I want to read it. So I read that, and I read The Dream Thieves, and then I bought Blue Lily Blue and The Raven King. And I read all of those, but I didn't, like, finish The Raven King until, like, that summer. So, like, it took me a hot second to read The Raven Cycle, but I definitely read The Raven Cycle in 2017. I honestly could not tell you what else I read in 2017. I don't have Goodreads to tell me, because I didn't start Goodreads until 2018. But I do know from Goodreads, because All for the Game was the first thing I read on Goodreads, that I read that in 2018. Because I got it for Christmas in 2017. Next question. As we can all tell, I just ramble on incessantly for the first one. But the second one, I think I predominantly just read fantasy. I think it's yeah, I've read a lot of fantasy in this time period. Like, obviously I've read other things. It's not like the Harry Potter situation where I just read fantasy and a dystopian. No, I've read fantasy, and I've read subsections of fantasy like magical realism and portal fantasy, because I read the Wayward Children series in 2018. And I can't wait for the next book that comes out in 2020, and it's January of 2020, so it's gonna be fucking lit. But anyway, I think fantasy was mainly the most that I read, but I've also read a lot of contemporaries. I'd say I've read quite a few contemporaries. I didn't start reading a lot of contemporaries until this year, though. I read some contemporaries last year, meaning 2018. But I don't think I read like a shit ton of contemporaries. This year I read like a shit ton of contemporaries. And obviously I read some historical fiction, but not a lot of historical fiction. Not enough to say it was my most read genre. Next is, what were your favorite books and authors? Alright, so I've mentioned everything probably at this point. As we all know, Song of Achilles still remains my favorite standalone. I mentioned The Raven Cycle, love The Raven Cycle. I mentioned All for the Game, love All for the Game. I mentioned Six of Crows, love Six of Crows. Other things that I've read that I love, the Sidekick Squad series. So this year I discovered Alice Oseman. And I read Radio Silence first, and then I read I Was Born for This, and then I read Heartstopper, and then I think I read I Was Born for This. She's my favorite author right now. But other authors include Rick Riordan, as I've mentioned before. I don't know, I think those two I would consider my favorite authors. Sean David Hutchinson, he's also a good author. So yeah, those are my favorite books and authors. I left out a lot of my favorites because there's just no time to list them all. But yeah, I mentioned the big ones. I mentioned the Holy Trinity. I mentioned the Song of Achilles. I mentioned Rick Riordan's books. Oh, did I mention the Magnus Chase series? I read the Magnus Chase series and I really liked it. Let's see. There aren't any books that I wish I'd read during this time period, and I don't have any regrets, to be honest. So let's just get to the ending two questions, which are, the first one anyway, is, when did you find BookTube / did it change your reading habits? So I found BookTube in 2018. It's possible it was late 2017, but I distinctly remember January of 2018, like finding Goodreads and reading All for the Game and marking it on my Goodreads and watching a bunch of booktubers and going to Barnes & Noble to find like a book that I'd heard a booktuber talk about once and was like, yes, I need this book in my life. So yeah, obviously it changed my reading habits. Obviously I read a lot more now that I watch BookTube and do BookTube. That's the nature of the beast. Second question is, how do you think your reading has changed over the last decade? Kind of already answered this. It's changed by the fact that I read a shit ton more books than I used to read. As you can tell from this tag, we started with 9 whole books and 3 whole years, and we gradually moved to over 100. So that's pretty impressive. I'm quite proud of the reading year I've had this year. I've read over 70 books, and my Goodreads goal was 30. So, snaps for me. I can't snap for myself because I can't snap, but snaps for me. I know I'm very rarely self-appreciative in these videos. I'm quite self-deprecative usually. But yeah, snaps for me for reading 70 fucking books. Over 70 fucking books. I'm don't think I'll make it to 80. But that's okay. Cause 70 is still a lot more than 30, and 30 was my goal. With all that being said, that's the tag. So I hope you enjoyed my rambling. This is going to be almost 30 minutes. It's 28 minutes right now. I really hope I managed to do some magical editing and make it under at least 20. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one.